We're so used to getting a lemon all the time at the grocery store, but are they coming from California or Florida? They might be coming from, Chile or someplace like that.
I'm Dalia Cologne, and this is The Zest. Citrus, seafood, Spanish flavor, and Southern charm. The Zest celebrates cuisine and community in the Sunshine State. This week, tips for cooking and baking with citrus. Get you a friend like George Geary. He's a cookbook author and culinary media personality, so of course he makes the best food and he tells the best stories. Earlier this month, George released his 17th cookbook. It's called Citrus Illustrated, a cookbook of 35 sweet and savory recipes. Born in Southern California, George has lots of helpful tips for us citrus-loving Floridians. In this conversation, he discusses how to select the most flavorful oranges and offers advice for cooking and baking with all parts of the fruit, no waste. Then he spills the tea about his time working as a pastry chef for the Walt Disney Company, including baking countless cheesecakes for the set of the Golden Girls. Now, as you'll hear in my voice, I was under the weather during this remote recording. So thank you for being a friend and enjoying this conversation with George Geary.
Well, honestly, this is my smallest book I've ever done with only 35 recipes, but they're really jam-packed with flavor. My largest book was 650 recipes, which took about 2 years to do. And when I bought my house in 98, I found out they had torn down all of these citrus farms. And I can't stand that we keep tearing things down, like beautiful old houses and beautiful pieces of land. So I thought, let me give back. And not far from me is a citrus museum. And the University of Riverside, which is in my county, is all about citrus and grafting and things like that. So that's why I did the book, to give back, because I took away by buying this house on the piece of property that had a lot of citrus.
Wow. Well, we appreciate that. And I should mention you're in Southern California. We're in Florida, but we do have that citrus connection, which is why we thought it would be great to talk to you. I mean, I'm staring at a lemon tree in my backyard as we speak, and I feel like I'm not getting the most out of citrus. All I really do with it is make salad dressing. So what are some of your favorite uses for citrus?
Lemon for almost anything. Like you said, salad dressings. And then I like to marinate stuff. And I just use lemons a lot. I don't have any citrus trees on my property here. Lucky you. I have a house in Palm Springs also. And there, we're a group of 37 small homes. And the rule is anybody's front yard, you're allowed to pick anything. And we have about 20 different types of citrus there, which is really great. But out in Palm Springs, the lemon trees, I thought, this is a different type of lemon. So I researched the lemon out there, and it's a breed of citrus that the skin is very, very thick. Because I thought these are the thickest lemons I've ever had when I first moved out there because of the sunshine. I know you have a lot of sunshine. I have a lot of sunshine, but I think it's Palm Springs, they have a lot more sunshine.
Yeah, so I think I want to be your neighbor. So where could
I want New York too.
Yeah, that would be great. So where might we encounter some of these lesser known varieties of citrus? Because if we're just shopping at the grocery store, there's maybe one lemon, 2 or 3 types of oranges. Do you have any suggestions for encountering these other types of citrus?
I say farmers markets. We have farmers markets. We have a Hollywood farmers market on Sunday mornings that you see everything and anything there, from movie stars to dominatrix from the night before. Ooh. I mean, it is funny. But I would say farmers markets. And then a place for history and to also look at some things is a place called Melissa's Produce. And it's online. And they have a lot of, they tell you when things are available. We're so used to getting a lemon all the time at the grocery store, but are they coming from California or Florida? They might be coming from Chile or someplace like that. But the other orange that I think is great is Seville oranges that we don't really get. And those come from Spain. And those you make jams and jellies because they're so tart.
Ooh, that does sound good. And along the same lines of finding in-season produce, do you have any tips for selecting, especially oranges? Because I feel like oranges are so hit or miss.
Yeah, oranges, even if they're yellow on the outside, could be ready to go because we are so used to fruit looking perfect. I say farmers markets are the 100% best place because when you go, you aren't going to see an apple in the middle of April at the farmer's market, and you aren't going to see an orange in the middle of November. Have you ever seen a lime finger?
I don't know. What is that?
Okay, it's about 1 inch to 2 inches. They're very strange looking. You cut open and it looks like caviar, white little dots.
Oh, yes.
And you can pull it out with like a toothpick and put it on top of a martini, or you can put it on top of something else like I put it on top of ceviche because it makes it glisten. And when you bite into it, it's like each little round dot, which a pearl, almost like when you go to a boba drink almost. And it shoots this lime flavor. And those are only for about 6 weeks. And you really have to look it up when those are available. But when I was doing the book, I only had about 8 months to do it. And I really had to watch which produce was coming in. And of course, the publisher looks at it and thinks, oh, you can get an orange anytime. It's just a book about orange. But they don't realize we have these specialty items that we are trying to talk about.
Absolutely. Okay, speaking of the book, it is literally citrus illustrated with these gorgeous illustrations of fruit by Rebecca Hollingsworth. So can you describe what those illustrations look like and why you decided to use an illustrator instead of a photographer?
Well, that's always the publisher's job. They deal with who they are. And I still haven't met her. In fact, I tried to befriend her on Instagram and she still hasn't befriended me. I thanked her for what a gorgeous book it is. And I was over at Chronicle, the book publisher that did it there in San Francisco. And I thought I'd get to meet her, but she doesn't work. She works at home. She's not a quiet person. I've seen other work of hers, but I love the illustrations. At first, when they told me we won't be doing photography, but we need you to take a picture of each dish. And so after I would make it, I would do, because I've done food photography before and food styling, part of my life of jobs. And I thought, okay, I'll do it. And I did it. And I sent the pictures over, and then she would send back the sketch drawings. And I would say if I liked it or not, or if I thought this should have this, or like the one with the finger limes with the little pearls. I said, you can't see them very well. And I know it's hard in the picture. So I did a close-up. So she redid that. But I mean, it's a small, cute little book. You know, if I was visiting someone, if I was in California or Florida, visiting somebody, I'd pick this book up with some oranges and take them to them as a gift.
Yeah, it's a great gift for if you're visiting someone. It's a great maybe hostess gift to bring. And I think the illustrations for me, they help me to see the citrus in a new light because in Florida, we are surrounded by citrus. But like I said earlier, sometimes we don't know what to do with it. And so seeing them as works of art helps me to kind of reimagine what I can do with them. And you do such a great job of that in the book. I mean, some of the recipes are mojito tea cake with rum glaze, blood orange glazed carrots, pink grapefruit and tomato salsa. And you've got martinis and scallops and all kinds of fun recipes. There's a pineapple chutney in the book with kumquats. I also appreciate that you give us know-how on using all the parts of the fruit, from the zest to the peel. We love the zest, the juice, and even the oils. So I know a lot of us maybe just use the juice and throw away the rest, but talk us through how we can use each part of the fruit.
Well, like that mojito cake, I was in London and I walked by kind of like a deli. And so I see this beautiful, beautiful cake, and it was called a mojito cake, and it was a pound cake. And I thought, well, I know what's in a mojito. I can make my pound cake and turn it into a mojito cake, and it would be limes and it would look beautiful as a loaf cake upside down with a glaze. And the glaze is rum glaze. And I did a kind of a soaked cake after it's made that I pour on top, and then this white glaze, and then the citrus on top with the peel. And I thought, well, I think I'll do that white on top, even though you've got the 3 or 4 rings of citrus, it still needs some zest. So I took and zested that on top so I would get that look. By itself, lime zest tastes horrible, but you got that sugary sweetness. It's pretty good. So I've used it in so many different ways. And also, whenever you put it into a pound cake, it does these speckles that are beautiful. So that's how you use it in different ways. The zest, you've got, you slice it up. And the kumquats, I did a morning show in Oakland the other day, and they were like, what do you use kumquats for? Well, a lot of people have never sliced a kumquat because that is the only citrus that you can put the whole thing in your mouth.
Yes.
So even the zest, everything, pop it in your mouth.
Yeah.
They're a burst of flavor.
Yeah, we actually have a kumquat festival here in Florida, so we love a kumquat.
Well, there you go. It was funny because when I was growing up, we had a kumquat tree, and we used to use them to throw at the neighbors because I thought they were ugly.
No.
Yeah.
Where did you grow up?
In Southern California.
Wow.
So we had one kumquat tree, and I'm sure that house still has the tree there. And we would throw them and we would play, like army and throw them. They were our bullets. And so the recipe that you mentioned, the chutney, I had somebody from one of the media sources cook that, and they did a video, and I threw it on my Instagram. And it's so beautiful, that kumquat chutney when it's cooked, and putting it over on top of chicken or fish. But I like to take kumquats and slice them very thin and sugar them to where I've candied them almost like candy peel. And it sounds like it takes a long time, but you can do it in an afternoon with, while you're doing other things. Then you've got them. And when people come over and you've made any type of cocktail, and you put them, because they float really beautifully. And the look of a kumquat looks like a little tiny sunshine. It's just really gorgeous. And people think you're Martha. They look at you and you go, wow, you know what you're doing. But the only problem with doing stuff like that is you don't get invited places because they think that you do it better all the time.
Oh, no. Well, you are. I feel like you're at that level where people would be nervous to have you over for dinner. You shared a recipe for grapefruit cake that we will share on our website, thezestpodcast.com. A lot of people think they don't like grapefruit because it's bitter. But tell me why this cake works.
Well, that cake, I've got 3 recipes in the book that are not originally mine. And I tell people when something's not mine. When I first started cookbook writing, I felt 100% had to be mine. But then I like to tell other people's stories. And that recipe is famous from the 1930s, from the Brown Derby. And I have a book all on historical restaurants of Hollywood, and the Brown Derby is on the cover. And it was supposedly a light and diet type of dessert for some of the stars that would come in. It's not diet. It's got cream cheese frosting. You living in Florida, you can taste that same cake over at Walt Disney World at the reenacted Brown Derby. But our original Brown Derby, we had 4 here in Southern California. And 1978 was the last year that they were in operation. And that's the other thing with citrus. If you don't care for one of the citruses, let's say you really like orange better than lemon, switch it in the recipe, and at 99% will work fine.
That's a great point. Okay, you mentioned Disney, and I know you worked for the Walt Disney Company. So can you tell
Yeah.
me about that time? I have to ask you about making cheesecakes for Golden Girls. That's iconic right there. So what are some of the shows that you worked on, and what did you do on those shows?
Well, I did a show called Mike and Maddie, and that was ABC morning show. It was like Regis and Kathy Lee, and I was their food segment person. I also did Live in LA, which was a local show, but it was Disney. And I wasn't hired because I was Disney. I didn't want them to know I'd worked for Disney, because wherever I've worked, I didn't want to use the word Disney all the time. Now, Golden Girls was Disney, but they didn't know I'd been the pastry chef at Disney.
So on Golden Girls, what was the context that required a cheesecake? I've watched a lot of Golden Girls, but I don't remember this episode.
Well, there was a lot of cheesecakes. So, in fact, if you ever buy something Golden Girls, they'll be sitting around eating a cheesecake. What happened with Golden Girls is I was working not at Disney. I was working outside at a bakery, and they would come in for prop stuff for Paramount Studios. And around Hollywood, there's Paramount and there's Warner Brothers. They're all really close. And this prop guy kept coming in for different things for other shows. The guy came in and he said, "We've got this weird show starting up with 3 old ladies and their gay cook. Okay. And is there any way you could make a wedding cake?" And I said, "Well, yeah, but your budget's really low." And he said, "Yeah, Disney did teach me the word no is not in your vocabulary. You could always do something." Oh, and they taught me a lot. I mean, I'm not bitter about Disney. I joke. So I said, "Okay, I can make it all styrofoam. Do you need anything edible?" And he said, "We need this one little piece edible." I said, "Okay, I can cut it out. That'll be edible." And I said, "I can't be on the set. And is it tape or is it film? Because coloring is different with white, with the lighting, how it bounces off." And he was like, "Boy, I'm impressed. You know about that stuff." I said, "I've been around. What do you need?" So I did exactly what he needed. And he said, "It's a pilot. It's not going to work." So then about 5 months later, he came back and he said, "Okay, they picked it up. Can you make a cake for them to sit around and talk?" He goes, "But we got rid of the chef and we've got a 4th lady now. It's a mom, I think is what he said." I said, "Yeah, sure. It doesn't matter how many people. What do you want?" And he says, "Well, we need 7 of the same thing." So I made 7 chocolate cheesecakes, and they're 10-inch cheesecakes, and no whipped cream, just very kind of plain that you'd buy at a bakery that weren't too special. And then I started doing all the food, like when Mom was stirring pasta sauce. The question is always, does it have to be edible? Because you want to make sure the talent doesn't get sick. If it doesn't have to be edible, does it have to look homemade, or are you really going to see it? So I'd use that ragu at that point. It was a cost thing. But if Mom was chopping up tomatoes, well, like, I don't know if you remember the episode when Blanche and Rose were selling sandwiches at the construction zone, and they were making baconless and potato sandwiches. So they said, "Okay, we need these to look really homemade, but we need a slice of potato so you really see it." So you really have to get into detail with what the food is going to be. So that's kind of what happened with Golden Girls.
I think you need to just get a cheesecake, go to a villa, relax. It sounds like you've earned it. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for putting up with my lack of a voice. I think I'm done talking for today. I'm going to rest my voice. But is there anything else you wanted to mention?
Oh, my website, georgegeary.com. And that's about it, Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure.
George Geary is the author of 17 cookbooks, including Citrus Illustrated. He shared the recipe for that grapefruit cake, and you'll find it on our website, thezestpodcast.com. I'm Dalia Colon. I produce The Zest with Andrew Lucas and Alexandria Ebron. The Zest is a production of WUSF. Copyright 2026, part of the NPR network.